And are you refreshed? Good. Now what? On the aisle right here.
Please let Esther know after this that she looks more young and beautiful every year.
She likes your hair.
Seems to be a trend in the audience. I grew up among a lot of well-meaning adults, religious adults, and they taught me a direction to train my life, and I did. And through force, I put together a life that I was told would bring me joy and happiness. And I got to a point where I realized that that was not the case. And at that point, I began looking for that joy and happiness. Soon after that, I found your teachings about 6 or 7 years ago and began to focus on my joy and how I felt. Every year, I've seemed to have an evolving question because that life seemed to have dismantled itself very dramatically at times, to the point where the relationships that I had, the possessions that I had, have purged themselves from my life. I'm happier than I've ever been, but I don't seem to be able to put together the life that I want now. It's not seeming to come together the way I'd like it to. How can I make it easier? What am I needing to do?
It's interesting because the word that you used, purge, law of attraction does that. Law of attraction brings to you what's active and holds from you what isn't. In other words, it's a really nice thing to acknowledge that whatever it is that's active in your vibration will make its way into your realization, into your ability to translate it into the tangible, manifested experience. So when you are remembering a past experience, that there are parts of it that you are happy to leave behind, what happens sometimes is that you take it all and attempt to leave it behind because there's a sort of guilt on your part or a justifying that I need to leave that behind, and in the process you sort of leave more behind than you mean to. You can be a selective sifter, and what we've noticed is that in any effort to leave something behind, this is one of the most powerful statements that we have ever made. When you make any effort to leave anything behind, you always leave more behind than you meant to. Because in the pushing against, you get that vibration going that doesn't allow you to keep the parts that you want. So if your philosophy instead of is, I'm trying to get rid of unwanted exposure to concepts that aren't working for me, if instead your attitude is, I did good so far, but now I'm even more discerning, and what I seek from where I am now is more of this. It's easier for you to keep the parts that you like and keep getting more of them while you leave the parts that you don't want aside. And the distinction is the purging, which never works, as compared to the allowing, which always works. So rather than focusing on what you want to leave out of your life, start focusing upon what you want to leave in your life. There is so much that you received from your well-meaning religious upbringing that still would serve you well. But in the feeling of control, you sort of wanted to get rid of all of it. And then you get lost in the process. Making sense to you?
Absolutely.
When you were talking about those well-meaning people who sort of controlled you in an environment to help you to get happy, you understood that that was what the mission was that you would be happier in life. We wanted to jump in there, but we didn't want to break your flow. Did you find them happy?
No.
See, that's the interesting thing. When you find people who are happy, they sound like that. When you teach happiness through the clarity of your example, then it's easy for people to take what they will benefit from it. When you teach happiness from control, what you're really teaching is control. What you're really teaching is pushing against. So it's that conversation again. So we have a good basis here. Do you have something more that you want to say?
Well, what I found is that their goals for me were very specific and very direct, and I knew what kind of a path to follow.
What were they? What were the goals?
Well, have a family, live the tenets of the religion, do this, do that, you'll attain these possessions, serve within the church.
Don't live under a bridge.
Don't live under a bridge. And this is what a family looks like, and this is what you're supposed to be.
And if you do these things,
you're supposed to have joy and happiness. I got to a point where I realized that I was probably one of the happier people that I knew, and I didn't fit into that mold. To be able to fit into that mold, I had to be counter who I was.
Everything that you're saying is accurate. Everything you're saying is true, but it is vibrationally off.
Okay.
Here's what we mean by that. The facts that you picked up along your trail are accurate. They were bossing you around, and they were trying to teach happiness from a place of not living quite as much happiness as you would like them to have lived. But at the same time, as you are focusing upon these factual things, in your pushing against, you are vibrationally out of alignment with what you now want. So if we could just sort of wave a club.
Go ahead.
For all of you, we would like you to understand that it really is as simple as this. Stop talking about the parts that you want to leave out and start talking about the parts that you want to leave in. It is that simple. So with religion, don't want control, want self-empowerment. Well, that's what is at the basis of every religion. Every religion is teaching, especially in the early versions of it, in the original versions of it, alignment with source, because every religion, or nearly, has been born from some sort of connection that someone was wanting to express. But then in wanting to control others, in other words, the religion, the true spirit is flowing through me, but if you get any of it, it's probably wrong.
Yes.
But I got it and I wrote it down, so you need to live what I wrote down. And you want to say, but wait, were you there this afternoon during this conversation? Were you within me at the time that I launched my rockets? Have you been there as my vibration has been raising? Are you aware of the fullness that I am? Well, of course, source is, but the individuals that are trying to get you to live by the letter of some law that was written at some time that has nothing to do with you, that's what feels off to you. The things that they're teaching are not necessarily off, but the methodology, in other words, anyone who says anything less than you are an extension of source and source is flowing through you and you have this personal guidance and it's available to all of you, anyone who says other than that is vibrationally off, you see. So as you are expressing to us how you left some things behind, we think it's nice that you leave unwanted things behind. But when you get too involved in explaining why you leave them behind, now you're not leaving them behind. Now you've taken the action, but the vibration is still there. So when you're taking one action that the vibration contradicts, then you end up in this contradicted place, and then your joy is muted, and then you're living the same thing that they were living, which is the reason that you left them to begin with. So now where do you go? Pretty soon you're going to be under a bridge. In other words, that's what the process is. That's what the process is. I don't want this, there's too much control here, and I don't want this, there's too much control here, and I don't want this, there's too much control here. So I will put myself in a place where they will finally, once and for all, give up on me. I will be so incoherent and unreachable that I will then finally be free. You get what we're talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
Where there is another process, and that other process is, I am this expansive person and I don't have to explain it to anyone. That really is the formula. If you could decide that you don't need to explain to them why you left, but just appreciate everything that they gave you while you were there, your vibration would raise. If you would look into what you're living now that you adore, and think of it often, it will expand. If you look at a possession that is meaningful to you and you hold it in your vibration often, not only will it stay, but other possessions like it must come. As you look at aspects of people, we started to say people, but that's too big of a label, because when you look at any person, there are attributes that blend with your desire and there are attributes that don't blend with your desire. So don't just take a person at full face and say, I want you in my experience. Look at the individual attributes. This is beneficial in this way, and this is beneficial. I like this about you, and I like this about you, and I like this about you, and I like this about that, and I like this about that, and I like this about that. And before you know it, you have activated the basis of your life with the things that you care about, with the things that you like, with the things that are in vibrational concert with who you are. And under those conditions, those manifested versions must be realized by you.